we're ready to go here? Ready? Everyone ready? Okay. Okay. Cuyahoga County Public Works Procurement and Contracting Committee meeting for Wednesday, April the 19th, 2023 will be called to order. Roll call, please.
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Ms. Turner.
Present.
There is a quorum.
Okay, is there any public comment this morning?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
Okay, and could we have approval of minutes from the April 5th, 2023 meeting?
So moved, Conwell. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the April 5th meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if we could please have the first matter referred to committee.
Resolution number 2023-0105, declaring that public convenience and welfare requires the replacement of Ridgewood Drive Bridge number 03.50 over West Creek in the city of Parma.
All right, and if you could just state your name for the record, please.
Nicole English with Public Works. So this is the first step in a project when we establish public convenience and welfare. This is for Ridgewood Drive Bridge over West Creek in Parma. We were the recipient of a federal earmark that was sponsored by Gonzalez before he was out. And so we received $2 million in federal funds. The other $500,000 for construction will come from the county. And so this is just beginning the process. The bridge is in need of repair. It's a general appraisal rating is 5, so that's rather low. It was built in 1925 and has had no major repair since then. I mean, minor repair, obviously, but nothing, no major project. And it serves just under 13,000 vehicles per day. So once we get started, we'll have a consultant start the design, and then, of course, not till we sell the construction will you see the construction contract come back. So this is just step one.
Okay. And when is the estimated start date on this?
2020, well, the construction start date is 2026. Once we start welfare and community, we're going to start a design shortly after this gets approved. But
Okay.
construction wouldn't be till 26.
And how long do you expect this project to last?
At this point, I don't really know, because again, we don't even have the design done yet, so we'll look at it. But I would anticipate it's a year project,
Okay.
but we'll know more closer.
And is this something that's going to close the entire West Ridgewood?
Again, not sure until we get into it. That's not our desire, but
Okay.
you never know.
All right, and at this point, I don't know if you'd be able to answer this, but is there any connected work with this as far as like sewers or anything else, sidewalks or?
No, not, well, of course, we always replace the sidewalk on the bridges, and we'll talk to the city about width and what it's connecting to, and, because once we build a bridge, we hope it lasts 50, 75 years. So we'll work with the city on what needs to go on top, but as far as sewer, no, I don't believe we've included anything like that. It's mostly just the bridge itself.
Okay, and this bridge you said was originally constructed in 1925?
Correct.
And what's the rating on this?
5A.
And what does that mean?
It's 0 to 9 is what 9 is the best, 0 is the worst. So it's in the middle. Normally, about a 5 is when we start programming projects. 4 is when you'd really want to make sure you get on them. And that's when you're mostly eligible for other federal funding, when you get down to a 4. So we were happy to get this money.
All right, I'll open the floor to any questions. Mr. Miller? Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. English, is the $2,500,000, is that just for the design, or is that for the entire project?
That's just for construction. So we, the county, will fund the design. I believe we're doing it through our general engineering contracts. So those contracts you approve kind of annually. So the design on this is probably in the range of around $250,000, which is under the general services contracts we can use.
And is the $2,500,000, is that for if it would be constructed today, or does that factor in the inflation that's likely to occur between now and 2026?
It factors in inflation as best we can. So, using the numbers we know today, but as you've seen in the last couple of years, they're a bit out of line. But yes, that is a future.
Hopefully, we're going to get back into a stretch where it's in line.
Yeah, at least stable.
Doesn't increase by 10 to 15% per year.
Right. So we will look closer to the date. If the costs are coming in higher, we'd look at issue 1 as possibly, filling some more of the funding in if we think we need to. But that's closer to the construction date.
Okay.
Okay, and Ms. Conwell has a question?
Through the chair to Nicole English, what are the funding sources?
$2 million federal, which is coming from a earmark, and then 500,000 is county, and that's county road and bridge.
So 2 million, I'm sorry, not hearing good. 2 million federal, and what was the second one?
500,000
Okay.
road and bridge.
Thank you. And that's our road and bridge, right?
Correct.
The city wouldn't give anything for this because it's a bridge?
It's a bridge that the county is responsible for.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, what are you looking for as far as the time frame on this? Can this have full 3 readings?
Yeah,
or-
these can go 3 readings,
Okay.
no problem.
With that, I'll make a motion to move this on for second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move R 2023-0105 on for second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could, the next piece of legislation.
Resolution number 2023-0106, declaring that public convenience and welfare requires the rehabilitation of Lee Road Bridge number 00.77 over Mill Creek in the city of Maple Heights.
Nicole English again with Public Works. So this is again the first step, public welfare and convenience for Lee Road Bridge over Mill Creek. So this we also received federal funding for. With the latest transportation bill, more money has been given to the states, and then in turn the state had given additional bridge funding to the County Engineers Association. So they've been running several rounds of bridge improvement projects where we could apply and get funded based on their criteria. And so Lee was selected in the last round through the CEAO. So the bridge was built in 1971. The appraisal rating is 4A, so again, this is a little bit lower than the one previously. It's serving about 6,000 vehicles per day, and we have a federal funding commitment of 80%, which is just above 3.9 million of the total construction cost. And it's looking like this one would also start construction in 2026.
Okay, and do you understand what the traffic situation will be like yet, or is that too early?
Too soon, too. We'll be, once we get into design, then we'll have more information. So when we have the contract for construction ready, we'll be able to give you all those details.
Okay, and I noticed this one was 1971 as opposed to the 1925 in Parma. So how is it that this one is in need of repair so quickly?
It's still 50 years, so that's in line with probably when bridges were built then, what you tried to get out of it. It just depends on the type of bridge, and sometimes they go quicker than others. The one before is more of an arch structure. The arches do tend to last a lot longer.
Okay.
This is more of a box.
Is the arch structure more expensive?
Sometimes to replace, yeah.
We should do all arches. Questions for my colleagues?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
So, regarding the last one and this one, if we have most of the necessary funding identified and we're starting the design process, why do they have to wait till 2026?
So federal aid projects take so long. So you have to go through a certain process with the environmental, and you have submissions that you have to make to ODOT. And so the design does just take, likely for a bridge about 2 years. So when we say 2026, the funds are available in fiscal 26, which could be, it starts July 1 of 25. So really we're about a little over 2 years away from being able to sell it if we sold it in 25. For starting in actual calendar year 26. But to be honest, I know it does seem like a long time, but the federal process for the bridges, between the reviews that we have to do at the state and back and forth with consultants, do tend to take a couple years to get designed.
So are you saying the federal money isn't even available till fiscal 26?
We did put the earmark, we could have put in whatever year we wanted. I think it would be available starting this coming year, but we chose 26 because that's when we thought we could get the project actually designed and ready for construction. Lee, that money was designated in 26. So
Okay.
that one is in that year.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, and I would assume that this is going to be
3 readings.
similar as far as having the readings.
Correct.
Full 3 readings. So I'll make a motion for R 2023-0106 to have a second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could, the next piece of legislation.
Resolution number 2023-0107, authorizing an amendment to contract number 1014 with Premier Investment Company for a lease of approximately 128 parking spaces located at 4209, 4213, and 4415 Euclid Avenue, Cleveland, for use by the Division of Children and Family Services.
Okay, and if you could just state your name for the record.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Public Works Committee. Happy Patriots Day. My name is John Myers. I'm here on behalf of the Department of Public Works, seeking authority to enter into a lease amendment with Premier Investments to obtain or keep 128 parking spaces located on roughly East 40th and Euclid Avenue for use by HHS employees at the J. Nedna Hunter Building. This is, as I stated, for 128 spaces, renewing in the amount of $455,200 for the next 5 years, and seeking your authority today.
Okay, what's the current condition of the lot?
We have problems, particularly in the winter, with plowing and such. The main driveway has some challenges. As part of this agreement, they have agreed to, cover the main entryway into the parking lot to help improve that situation.
Okay, and are these just employees that'll be parking here, or other?
Correct.
Okay. And then what's the cost roughly of per space?
This new rate is approximately $59 per month per spot.
Okay. Is that average, or
For the Midtown corridor, yes, it's appropriate for that growing marketplace.
And do we have other lots with this vendor, or is this exclusive just to this property?
We do, Mr. Chairman. We have one other lease for the adjacent parking spaces for, I think it's about 150 or 60 additional spaces from them.
Okay, and then you mentioned that they agreed to repave the entryway. Are they
Yes.
responsible for other maintenance in the lot as well?
Yes, all general maintenance.
Okay, and has there ever been any consideration of trying to purchase the lot?
Yes, as part of a long-term, I've advocated that we purchase these lots. As part of that, and I think I've shared in the past when I've come before you,
Yeah.
we have bought, we used to have 5 leases. Now we have 3 leases because we purchased 2 lots that service this building and as well as the archives building in order to gain control over our parking needs there. So we have bought 2. Those were off of Euclid Avenue, so less expensive. And this particular developer has had and has plans for development of this site. So it's a lot more expensive than the others, and we don't necessarily have a willing seller at this time.
Okay, thought I'd ask.
Yes.
Questions for my colleagues? Ms. Conwell?
So through the chair to Mr. Myers, just to follow up on that last point. So is there something in the agreement that he'll let us know when he wants to start to develop on that lot? Because that would kind of put
Sure.
us in a conundrum a little bit.
It would, Mr. Chairman, to Councilwoman Conwell, there is a year's notice required on if he wishes to do something different than lease it to us for parking. So we would at least have a year's notice, and that's why we had acquired these other lots, to at least have some control in the neighborhood with some parking, because prior to that, we had no control of any parking except for the one immediately adjacent to J. Nedna Hunter. So,
And how do we pay him? Monthly invoices or?
yes, I believe under this new lease, we're paying him twice a year rather than monthly, but
Then my other question would be through the chair. When you amend to extend the time period, which this one is doing, typically does the contractual agreement stay the same?
the base lease stays the same, except for, if you notice, this amendment's pretty short. There's really only 2 pages. So we generally just amend the terms. If we needed to amend something else, we would. But the base lease still is in place and covers our general relationship. And the amendment is largely just dealing with the change in term and economics.
Okay, so nothing changed other than economics in this one?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Just a real quick follow-up on Ms. Conwell's point. If they do decide to terminate the lease, so are we absolved? Is there a way of us getting out too? Is there an exit?
Yes,
for us too?
Mr. Chairman, we both, the county and the vendor have the right to terminate with a year's notice. For our own purposes too, as we continue to evaluate our employees and housing of our employees, it also gives us that flexibility to change this relationship sooner rather than later if need
Okay.
be.
All right, thank you. Mr. Miller, I think you had something?
Yes, a couple of questions. Is the rate flat throughout the 5 years, or is this a total that's compiled by a series of escalator clauses?
No, Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Miller, it's a flat fee for all 60 months of the lease.
And what's the rate that we're currently paying per space?
Approximately 54 something dollars.
So it's gone up about 10, and has it been that for the last 5 years?
Yes, it has. So it's from a 5-year to a 5-year, it has gone up 9%. But if you look at it per year, that's roughly 2% per year.
Couple percent.
Less than 2% per year.
It's pretty reasonable. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other follow-up questions? Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're rocking that plaid shirt. I just want to let you know that.
It's in honor of Patriots Day, Mr. Sweeney.
I appreciate that, and I respect
We
that.
have our blue coats on.
You took it to a different level, so I'll guard against trying to be a smart aleck. Who is the operator? Is it an operator or an owner?
It's a owner, Gordon Primer, with Heartland Investments Development.
So
It's a family development company here in
yeah,
Cleveland.
normally if it's an owner hires an operator to use the lot, but since we're the sole one, they don't need to do that.
Correct. They have other investments in the neighborhood.
They're not a
that they-
parking operator.
No,
It's perfect. So, and then when you say it's for employees only through the chair, so none of the customers or folks can park there?
It's not designed for visitor parking per se,
Visitor, yeah.
but we do have other visitor parking, metered parking along East 40th and the parking lot for the building itself. There's nobody there really to stop a visitor from parking there, but it's generally not where, it's generally designed for employees.
Yeah, I just want to make sure if,
Yeah.
because sometimes through the chair, employee parking has a specific badge or a key card to get them in, and it's not restricted if they park there. It's first come, first serve, and majority is taken up by the employees.
Yes.
Framework. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Ms. Conwell?
Through the chair to Mr. Myers, is Public Works starting the process to look for additional spaces just in case for plans or whatever?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Conwell, yes, we're continuing looking, and because we have other investments in the neighborhood too with the archives building, and now most recently we've added what will be the new Veterans Service headquarters. We're always looking, but no opportunities have presented itself, and there's not a lot of easy opportunities we've tried to act upon with council's help on those 2 other lots, which we now control in the neighborhood, and generally keep an eye open for any opportunities, but there's not a clean or good one that's presented itself.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, what is the ask here as far as moving this
I
along?
would
see it's-
ask for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, that you consider passing this on the second reading.
Okay, I'm okay with that, given the effective date here. So if no one has any objections, I'll make a motion to move this on for second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for second reading suspension on R 2023-0107. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Myers.
Thank you all.
Madam Clerk, the next piece of legislation here.
Resolution number 2023-0108, making an award on requisition number 11665 to Vondra Brothers Construction in the amount not to exceed $2,747,507.25 for rehabilitation of Dunham Road from Turney Road to Libby Road in the city of Maple Heights.
Okay, and if you could just state your name for the record.
Nicole English with Public Works. So this is the award of a construction contract for 1.8 miles of Dunham Road to be resurfaced in Maple Heights. There was 3 bids submitted, all reviewed. They were within $100,000 of each other, and so we are selecting the lowest and best bid. It was over the engineer's estimate by 5.87%. But because they were all so close together, we do still think it's a fair and valid bid. The contractor has exceeded the diversity goals. They are themselves an SBE, so they get a 20% credit for that. And then they've reached 31% in MBE and 5.6% in WBE. So they've exceeded those goals that were set by the diversity department. The project will start upon approval, so we will ask for second reading suspension if possible. With the nice weather, they'd like to start paving as soon as they can. The project is funded 80% county. This is a county operations project that was selected a few years back, and then 20% by the city of Maple Heights.
All right. Yeah, and it was, as you noted, and as Director Lockett noted, it was the lowest bid, and it exceeded all the DEI requirements, so goals, and that's a win-win situation for everybody. So I just want to bring it to everyone's attention. As far as traffic during construction, what's the traffic pattern going to be?
I believe they're maintaining, so it's a moving zone, but I'll double check on that. And let you
Okay.
know.
And then what is the, I don't know if you said this, but like the rating on this?
I believe it was fair to poor when it was selected, but that was when it was probably selected about 2 years ago. So I'm guessing even a little bit worse than that
And
now.
then how much traffic do we get through that area?
I do not have that number. I'll get you that number too.
Okay, if you could let us know. And then what do you attribute the I guess the bid exceeding all the recommended or
The estimate.
aspirate goals?
How they were able to
how
meet
is
the
it?
diversity goals. I think certain projects are more prime for that. So paving projects, we're seeing a lot more participation. There are MBE paving companies, and so they're partnering together. And then there's more SBEs in that field. Where we're struggling to see is the bridge projects, just because the material on a bridge is what costs so much of the money. And so the opportunity there, you don't have an MBE steel manufacturer in town. So I think paving projects are really primed to exceed the goals that are set for sure.
Okay, very good. I just was wondering if, are there any, I mean, we've obviously made inroads and have taken steps. Anything further that we can do to continue this trend, or?
Yeah, we've talked with Director Lockett a bit about, doing different meetings together and trying to expose more contractors and get them registered. I mean, we constantly hear it's just really difficult to do business with the county. And so some people, the smaller companies
Yeah.
still struggle with that.
Yeah.
And so we've tried to put some samples together as to forms. But I mean, if you take our bid package out, I mean, it's like this thick, and so it is intimidating to some of the smaller groups. And so we've tried to talk with Director Lockett about, are there opportunities where we can put together some webinars? We could have some drop-in sessions where we help people.
Right.
And
I know we had talked about the possibility of doing that, of educating businesses about the process and,
Right. And I do think, these success stories can show the people who aren't bidding, that think like there's no way I can get work or help, to show that we are committed and see we are doing it, we can do it.
Right.
And maybe that gives them the incentive to try a little bit more.
Right, okay, all right, thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Mr.
have one.
Miller? Anybody?
My question is why no state or federal funds were sought, or were they sought and not provided?
We did not seek federal funds for this job. It was picked on our operations project, so it wasn't included with NOACA. We did look to apply for issue 1, and it did not score well enough to meet issue 1 at the time, just based on condition, traffic, different factors that go into issue 1. So that's why we're funding it ourselves out of the 80%.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. And I see a start date of May 5th Is that correct? May 1st?
That's the hope. So
Okay.
you could get it on second reading suspension, that would be wonderful.
Okay. If no one has any objections, I'll make a motion for second reading suspension on this. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for second reading suspension on R 2023-0108. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay, and the ayes have it. All right, thank you, Ms. English. Is there anything miscellaneous business this morning before the committee?
I just wanted to ask Nicole something in regards to issue $1. Do we have a list or, I know you go out for various projects. Do you go out for every time or?
So issue 1 is annual, so every fall we submit a list of projects. So we're typically looking to get anywhere from 6 to 10 million in issue 1. And so we look at all of our slated projects for the following year. You apply in the fall for the next July is when they're available. So it's when you're really close to being ready to construct. So we look at our CIP, everything that we're going to deliver in the next year, and we pre-score every project internally and see which ones we think, based on last year's score, that where the cutoff was, what can actually get funded. And then we pretty much apply for all the projects that we think could be funded through issue 1. And so then you submit in about September, and then by December, January timeframe is when you know if you're going to get the award or not.
Do we pretty much get all of our?
We try to, because we don't want to go through the effort to put the application in if we don't think it'll score well enough. So we do a good enough job to pre-score that we have a pretty good feeling that those projects should all get funded based on our analysis. Once in a while, one won't make the list. It might be close to the line. It might end up on the contingency list. But in general, most everything we submit is getting funded what we ask for. So we also adjust. There's points that you get based on how much % you're asking for in the money. So if we're close, sometimes we'll ask for less money than we would maybe desire, but make sure it gets funded. So instead of asking for 50%, we might ask for 40% of the funds because it gives you an extra couple points.
Every year we apply for issue
We do.
$1.
We do.
And so after you apply for the issue $1 and you rate internally what you think a project, that kind of gives you an idea where we're going to need the county funds?
Correct. And so a lot of times we'll even go to issue 1 to help the city with their share, because on an 80-20, sometimes it's still significant for the city to take on. So we'll go to issue 1, and then we get to split that money across, so they get some of it towards their credit and some of it towards the county's credit. So we really look to fill in some of those local shares to help them out too. So it is a benefit for the cities to even partner with us on projects, because we kind of can come in and even get those additional grant funding.
All right, thank you, Ms. Conwell. You came very prepared today. Ask questions?
More.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, while we're engaging in miscellaneous discussion with Nicole, I would just like to ask a broad level follow-up question as to, we did this whole slew of COVID-19 retrofit projects, and my question is whether we completed all of such work that we desired, or whether there's still any retrofit projects that we're thinking about doing using other funding sources.
So we had a big list, right? We had kind of short-term lists, longer-term lists. I would say we didn't complete everything that we hoped to based on that. There is still some entryways to buildings that we didn't necessarily get to, or lobby spaces, specifically in the HHS buildings. But I think we've paused on that a bit to just figure out what's happening with all the buildings, especially now with the administration change. I will say one that is going forward is the animal shelters expansion, that we are not using necessarily COVID money, but we took over their conference room space to put general services to do the dog licensing in their building, and so they lost any ability to space out and host events and conferences, and they were actually doing trainings for across the country, would come in and do trainings. Now we didn't have any space. So that is one project we're pursuing with other money that was on the initial COVID list. But in general, most of the small projects got done. It's more of some of those longer-term lobby improvements that were still on hold.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And it might not be such a bad idea to maybe get a little more in depth on that at a later meeting. We could kind of discuss what you were touching on in a little more detail, because those were, at the time, I recall, they were pretty well thought out projects, and
Yep.
in hindsight, maybe what was good in the short run and what's good in the long run, and whether some of those monies are still capable of being used for those projects or have to be used by a certain time frame. Those are good questions, I
Yep.
think, that we should maybe just follow back up on. I appreciate Mr. Miller bringing that up.
We could even
So-
put a presentation for
Yeah,
next
no, I
committee.
think-
How about that?
You know, that'd be great. That'd be
Okay.
a great thing. I don't want to put pressure on you to do that just right away if you.
I'll pass that right off to Matt Reimer. He'll be ready to know. Yeah, we'll get that together for sure.
Right after.
She didn't
he's
have
done
to
with
do it, that's why she's like.
Yeah, that's why I'm committing to 2 weeks from now, no.
All right. No,
I
no.
will say, though, the CARES Act money, did have time frame, so that had to be used, so we did kind of clean those ones up, but then there was a second tranche of ARPA money that we did some improvements with.
Okay.
So we'll go through
excellent.
all that.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
All right. Any other miscellaneous business? Okay. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we'll adjourn at 10:40 a.m. Thank you, everybody.